Charles Leclerc does the double on the opening day of the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. The Monegasque driver tops free practice 1 and free practice 2 at Ferrari's home race. But the big talking point is Max Verstappen and Red Bull on what was arguably their worst day on track since the current regulations were introduced. From RacingNews365.com, my name is Nick Golding, and I'm joined, as always, by lead editor Ian Parks, who is glistening in the sunshine. Ian, Red Bull, Max Verstappen, it was a horror show.
Yeah, hello everyone, and a very warm welcome from Imola. Got a track behind me right here. We're blessed with where they've placed the new media centre this year, because literally right over there is the side of the track. So we're going to have a fantastic view on Sunday for when those cars come hurtling into the first corner. Sun setting here, beautiful evening here at Imola. But yes, you're right, not a beautiful day for Max Verstappen whatsoever. Problems in FP1 with that RB20, continued in FP2, and not a happy bunny whatsoever. Described it as, quote unquote, a bad day. Can it get any worse on Saturday? Question Max. We certainly hope so. And for his sake, surely things can only improve. As mentioned, started off in FP1. In particular, that car struggling going into turn 11. And on two occasions, Nick, it purpled the first sector. Going into turn 11, he said he got no traction. Car was bottoming him out, bottoming out into that corner. It's a fast right-hander, and then coming out of it, again, lost the grip. And that middle sector, that was the part of that middle sector that really lost in time. Went over the grass at one stage, went over the gravel at one stage, and he was really struggling. He was hoping that things would have improved quite naturally for FP2, and initially that appeared to be the case. However, again, the issues continued, and as you've mentioned, this was a really bad day for him. Those are his quotes, a bad day. So will it get better? Who knows? Got a great day for Ferrari, for Charles Leclerc in particular. A bucket load of upgrades on that SF24 as they had promised, and for now they appear to have delivered. Front wing, rear wing, side pod inlets, engine cover, floor edges, rear suspension. This is a massive turnaround for Ferrari. We knew it was coming. They promised us that it was coming. And we always thought, well, can it deliver? Can it get close to Red Bull? From what we have seen so far, that most certainly appears to be the case. But as we've seen in the past, Friday practice is one thing, Saturday qualifying, Sunday Grand Prix is another. But right now, Ferrari will certainly be feeling happy. Max Verstappen will most definitely be not.
And of course, being the start of the European leg of the season, it's traditional to see teams introducing huge amounts of upgrades, as we've seen with Ferrari. But the most important thing with Ferrari, and in particular Leclerc, is, at least at Imola, the upgrades are working incredibly well. Just looking at the timing sheets, Leclerc was 2/10 clear of Oscar Piastri in second, and McLaren we'll get onto in a bit. But Verstappen was half a second behind. Perez was 6/10 behind. So, that's a big amount of time to make up at a circuit where traditionally as well, the lap times are quite close together.
It is. Traditionally, we've seen in the past, Red Bull, very often, not often the quickest on a Friday, but this is a different Friday because they know they've got problems with that RB20 going into the rest of the weekend. It's a case now of what can they do, it would appear, to limit the damage? Because as we're discussing, it's been just, like you pointed out at the very start, I think, Nick, probably one of their worst Fridays since the implementation of these regulations at the start of 2022. So they've got a lot of work to do for sure. Certainly not only to claw the gap to Ferrari, but seemingly also to claw the gap to McLaren, who had a good day in particular with Oscar Piastri. He was second quickest, as you've mentioned. Piastri, of course, think back to the Miami Grand Prix weekend. McLaren had a massive upgrade package there, but 100% of it went on Lando Norris's car. Only 50% of it on that of Oscar Piastri. Oscar here at Imola now has that full upgrade package, and so far he's certainly made good use of it. Not a great day for Lando Norris, Miami Grand Prix winner, his first success in F1 in his career, and today just one of those that didn't quite go well for him. So, but he will be encouraged at least by what he's seen from his teammate. He'll be happy with Oscar has managed to get that car close to the Ferraris, certainly sandwiching the Ferraris for now, because he will know that there is so much more to come on his car. But for Red Bull, how much more can they unlock in their car, in particular, in terms of getting it in the right window for Max, getting it, that traction in particular, as we talked about, that troublesome turn 11 that he's had to negotiate all day, to avoid that bottoming him out, to avoid losing that time. It's going to be fascinating going into tomorrow now, final practice 3, to see where the Red Bull have got a handle on these issues and what then that will mean for both qualifying and the Grand Prix.
And of course, those who are watching this video, make sure to let us know in the comment section if you think Red Bull will turn it around. And if you think as well, this is one of the worst days Red Bull has endured on the circuit since the current regulations were introduced. We spoke in the podcast about how, which teams will be relieved that this isn't the sprint weekend. Red Bull are probably one of them now. And obviously, you mentioned Lando Norris and his a disappointing day, I guess, in terms of his positioning. But actually, he was the only driver not to do a soft tyre run on a fresh set. And we know from the past how quick he is here. So Piastri being second, as you mentioned, will be hugely, a massive boost to him. We've got to mention Mercedes because they're another team of upgrades who have kind of gone under the radar today. P4 for Lewis Hamilton, P5 for George Russell. We've said this a few times on a Friday that it seems like Mercedes are finally starting to figure out the W15. But today it seems actually that genuinely is the case.
Yeah, we had Lewis Hamilton saying on Thursday, media day here at Imola, that it appeared that Mercedes had found its North Star or was getting close towards finding its North Star. It's a comment he said in the past, so on this occasion, you had to take it with a pinch of salt. However, we then had James Allison, Mercedes technical director, following up in the Friday afternoon press conference in between the two practice sessions, and he was cautiously optimistic that they were beginning to find not so much a North Star, but certainly a better baseline with this car from which it can operate. Because without a shadow of a doubt, over the first 6 Grand Prix, it has been, one of Mercedes' worst starts since it returned to Formula One, but without a doubt, Lewis Hamilton's worst start since he joined Mercedes. So we've always known that they've got so much more to find. It was a question of, can they do that? Is this the start of something? Again, as you've alluded to there, Nick, it would appear to be the case. Not a bad day for them. James was certainly happy that coming out of FP1, that there was a lot that they could work with. Going into FP2, again, they've certainly indicated that they could not so much be in the mix for pole position, perhaps. That might be a little bit too much to ask, but certainly in contention right now, given the Red Bull struggles, in contention for at least the second row, which would be such a dramatic turnaround from them, given what they've experienced so far this season.
I suppose with Mercedes having, seemingly found something this weekend, the last thing they'll want is the rain that's reported on Sunday, which if that does happen, you'll probably want an umbrella if you're going to stand on top of the media centre for the start of the race. But that as well, that's, another element to consider this weekend, which could turn so much on its head because is the Ferrari going to work in the rain? Will McLaren? We know Max is phenomenal in those conditions. I guess that's something we'll probably talk about more tomorrow when we've got a better picture of the weather. A special mention for Yuki Tsunoda, P3 today in the RB. I think it was something like 7 tenths quicker than Daniel Ricciardo, which is massively impressive by the Japanese driver. A slightly naughty boy, though, in FP2.
Yeah, but one of those that he's only been given a reprimand for making a start. An unscheduled start according to the regulations. So, yeah, slightly naughty. As I say, it's a reprimand. He's got away with it. So I can't imagine he's going to be too bothered about that, to be fair. But most certainly, Yuki across both sessions so far has looked really strong. A couple of small mistakes here and there in FP1, came out wide at one point, got onto the gravel. Those gravel traps so far, which, as we know, was one of the talking points that we mentioned in the podcast, they're certainly playing the part, which is great to see in many respects. We want to see these slight mistakes being punished, not slightly punished, but being punished, that the drivers then have to pull out of the lap that they're on. So it's going to be fascinating tomorrow as to what's going to happen in qualifying. I remember here a couple of years back, you mentioned Lando Norris's pace. He was in contention for pole only to go and make a mistake, and he missed out. So he's got a lot to make up in many respects, Lando, because as you say, he's not done that fast tyre run yet. We've not seen what he's fully capable of in that McLaren. He has seen what Oscar's capable of, as I've mentioned, so he will know that there is a hell of a lot more to come. Just a quick line on the weather, as you touched on there, Nick. You said, could there possibility of rain on Sunday? Well, yesterday's forecast, Thursday's forecast, said there was going to be rain this afternoon. It's not materialised. Instead, we've had this gloriously sunny day, as you can see, with the sun making me squint. But hey, anything to give you good positions, guys, with good views behind me, good background. So I'm taking that with a little bit of pinch of salt at the moment. As you say, we can touch on that a bit more tomorrow, perhaps on Saturday, looking into Sunday and how the weather might have an impact on the Grand Prix itself.
The thing that's really interesting about the gravel traps that you started to talk about there is the fact that it wasn't just a couple of drivers being caught out. It was those of varied experience. We saw Lewis Hamilton spin. We saw Max being caught out, Lando, Daniel. So it's clearly something that's challenging all the drivers, which is what we want to see. We want to see the drivers being pushed to the limit. One driver who perhaps wasn't quite at his limit today was Alex Albon, who caused a red flag only 20 minutes into FP1 after his car seemingly just completely shut down. It was bizarre. And obviously he enters this weekend on the back of signing a multi-year contract extension with Williams, but it appears they've got real issues this weekend.
Yeah, FP1, Alex, according to Williams, he ran over a curb and the car just switched itself off, basically. So he then had no alternative but to park the car on the side of the grass, caused the red flag, 7-minute delay there. So not too much time lost for the other 19 drivers. But yeah, it's so far, this is the kind of track, real fast paced, that Williams knows it has an issue with. I'm going to say fast paced, I'm talking about the corners in particular. These are blindingly quick corners. It's a real old school track, Imola. It's a big favourite with many that come here because of what can be achieved with cars. But it does also then draw out these mistakes, and numerous mistakes across both sessions from many of the highly experienced drivers. Alex won't be too concerned that he's lost some running, I don't think. It is a normal weekend, again, as we discussed in the podcast.
What is a normal weekend?
Well, yeah. I'm coming up to 8 o'clock and I've still got plenty more work to write when I get back to my laptop after this podcast, but not that you viewers or listeners care anyway, so he's not worried about what I've got to do. But for Alex, just touching on what you mentioned, yeah, a normal weekend, bearing in mind the past 2 weekends in China or Miami have been sprint weekends. So at least he's got FP3 to put it right. Williams have got FP3 to try and put it right for both of their drivers because, yeah, they are struggling at the minute. They're at the back of the pack in terms of the timesheet, that's for certain.
And we do, obviously, as I mentioned, need to briefly discuss the fact he's signed this multi-year contract, which, at least for me, I think came out of the blue a little bit because he's this driver who's been leading Williams magnificently and, you know, was being rumoured with several more competitive teams. Were you surprised to see him agree to not only more than a 1-year deal, a multi-year deal?
Not really, not having listened to the words of team principal James Vowles yesterday when he addressed the media. He did say there was a concern because Alex was on the list of many other team principals that he'd spoken with up and down the pit lane. However, he'd made it clear, even before he started at Williams, would you believe, he said he sat down with Alex last January over dinner and said, "You're the guy I want to push this team forward." We saw that over the course of last season. Alex had a tremendous season, scoring all but one of the team's points last year. And that's why he then came onto the radar of so many team principals, according to James, going into the start of this season after it was, Lewis Hamilton triggered that domino effect as to who was going to go where. So many other drivers out of contract this season. And that really led to the drivers' silly season, the driver transfer market opening up in a big way. But he was always very confident, having been in constant talks with Alex, that he would sign this new deal. Some of the comments he made about Alex when he was talking to us on Thursday, a real leader, someone that can drive this team forward. There was an eruption in the factory when it was announced, according to James, that this new contract had been signed. So it gives you some idea as to the esteem in which Williams hold Alex Albon. So he's going to be their mainstay driver now, pushing this team forward over the coming years. The big question is, who's going to be the number two? James said that there is a list of three. Now, Logan Sargent, he said, is effectively, it's up to him. He's got to prove that he's capable of holding down that number two seat. We've not seen it so far from Logan, even though he said on Thursday that he had his best weekend in Miami. However, I have to admit, in talking to him, he wore the look of a guy, I would suggest, that pretty much knows he does not have a seat for next season. So James's comments saying Logan has it in his locker to potentially hold down that seat, maybe that was him giving us a line, because as I say, Logan did not look particularly happy on Thursday. So that list of three we're probably looking at. So Logan, okay, let's say Logan. Kimi Antonelli, so far has been long rumoured to links with Williams. Williams, we're led to believe, is the team that has applied for the exemption to the FIA super license that states that no driver before their 18th birthday can compete in any way in F1. Kimi Antonelli does not turn 18 until the Sunday of the Dutch Grand Prix weekend. We're not sure what's going on there at the moment with the FIA. That's something to be followed up. And as for that third driver, we feel it's going to be Valtteri Bottas. So Valtteri with stake, as we know, he's raced with Williams in the past, had a great time there before he then eventually went on to Mercedes. Could he go back to his old team? If he is that third driver, he's certainly in the running. Will add that experience, of course, that you could arguably say that Williams really needs more than a Kimi Antonelli, I would suggest right now, if it is to push itself forward, not just towards the top of that midfield, but on the tail end of those leaders. James has mentioned that it's not going to be 2026 when the new regulations kick in. We're looking at 27, 28. So it's going to be more of a long-term project for whoever does come in. That would therefore lend itself to suggest that maybe a Kimi Antonelli might be the way forward, that would give him the time by the time then 27, 28 comes in, if he's going to be with Williams that time, or will Mercedes have blocked him or taken him on by then, as they did George Russell, allowing him 3 years at Williams before he moved to Mercedes. Again, it's all part of this driver speculation, transfer market talk, which just makes F1 so fascinating behind the scenes at the moment, as well as fascinating right now on the track, given what happened to Max in Miami, given what has happened to Max here on Friday at Imola.
Williams, I guess, find themselves in a similar position to Haas a couple of years ago when they had to choose between the youth of Mick Schumacher or the experience of Nico Hulkenberg. Obviously, for those watching, let us know in the comment section what you think of Albon signing a multi-year deal and who you think will be alongside him. Ian, to finish up, it's that time of the F1 update. It's bold prediction time, but at least this week, it's only a qualifying prediction. There is no qualifying and sprint. So that's a bonus. I'm going to give you a few seconds to think. I'm going, it doesn't really sound bold, Lando Norris pole position.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I think definitely from what we've discussed, and especially from what we've seen, Oscar Piastri P2, that's a very good possibility. Let's go bold. And it is, at the end of the day, a bold prediction. I know this isn't going to please the Max fans, but we have fun with these bold predictions, so allow us that bit of levity. So I'm going to say Max not in the top three.
That might be the boldest of bold predictions we've had in the F1 updates. And that is a perfect way to end this. Let us know in the comment section your bold predictions as well, and who you think will get pole position. Ian, I'll let you get back to work. If it's just as hot tomorrow, make sure to put on your SPF 50. From myself and Ian, this has been the Racing News 365.com F1 update. Join us tomorrow evening for the post-qualifying one. See you later.
Take care, folks.